Hey folks, Jesse Bayer here with Abundant Living Ecuador with a lighter, perhaps more humorous topic tonight. Let's talk gringo prices. So this is this is a topic seemingly near and dear to people's heart who live in Ecuador, foreigners who live in Ecuador, who potentially are looking at Ecuador. A lot of people are concerned, I guess, essentially about getting ripped off. And you hear a lot of comments and a lot of conversation and things are written, and people, I would say, in a certain sense, have a lot of fear around this idea of gringo prices, this idea that a price for Ecuadorians and then a price for foreigners. So let me I just want to give you my take on that. Let's just talk about that for a minute. Do gringo prices exist? Yes. And here's the way that they exist. They exist in the sense that they would exist basically anywhere in the world that anyone who's conducting business is for the most part, with your exceptions, but for the most part are trying to get top dollar for whatever good or service they're performing or they're selling or performing. So and I know that this varies culturally a bit from place to place. This varies, region to region. For example, I lived in New York for about half my life in New York City, and there is an area of the United States where culturally bargaining is the norm. You negotiate with your mechanic, and you can negotiate. Of course, not with everybody across the board, but negotiating is part of the culture. I would imagine I believe there's other places, even within the United States where that would be much less the case. Negotiating is certainly part of the culture here. And to the extent that, for example, if, in New York City, or I think in probably most places in the world, to the extent that you don't know what something should cost, you absolutely could be somebody could try to get a little more out of you than what they would be willing to part with it for. Fairly normal, right? So if an Ecuadorian were to see a foreigner, could they think to themselves, "Oh, this person may not know what this is actually worth," and try to get a little more? Sure. Just like in New York City, somebody with an out-of-town accent could easily be taken for a ride in some transaction or whatever. So that is completely possible. That being said, I think the whole idea of gringo prices, the fear amongst foreigners, is way overblown. People aren't just running around trying to rip you off. That's just, just doesn't really happen. Are people going to try to get the most they can get out of you? Sure. I would say for the most part, not across the board, but for the most part, yeah. And that, that sort of situation will play out obviously more if you don't speak the language, while you're learning the language, and while you're just learning, what things cost. In my personal experience, have I ran into this many times? Maybe a couple in the almost 4 years that I've been here. Have I seen it happen? Yeah. Have I heard stories? Sure. And again, it just just goes with the territory. It comes with a little experience, and you figure out what things cost and what they're worth, and you figure out that a little negotiation is totally fine, and there isn't just necessarily a price for everything, and that's not just for you. That's for anybody. It's just culturally here how it works. So that's true for if you're foreign or if you're Ecuadorian, you can negotiate, and the price is not necessarily the price. A lot of shopkeepers, people certainly at the markets, essentially, etc. Contract providers, everybody really will bargain and negotiate down on price if you so choose, or they won't, and you can choose to pay or take your business elsewhere. But so I would say in general, don't worry about it. And specifically, could you lose a couple of bucks while you or not even lose, but could you, spend a little bit more on a few things while you sort out prices and learn the language? Sure. One thing I think we should touch on is real estate prices. That's sort of our area of expertise. Real estate prices, that includes sales and rentals. As it relates to Gringo Prices, quote Gringo Prices. When foreign money comes into anywhere, obviously that can affect prices to some degree. That's just the market. If there's more money, prices go up. So in places like Cuenca, where there's been a lot of foreign money, depending on the cycle, if in the part of the cycle where lots of people are coming, have our prices slightly more elevated than you'd find somewhere else. For example, in Vilcabamba, our price is a little higher than other towns that are similar. Yeah, a little bit. And that would, that's for real estate, for rentals specifically as well. So, that's obviously has nothing to do with Gringo Prices. It's just foreign money. But, as far as being worried about getting ripped off for land, for houses, being a foreigner, I have seen that happen, and again, it comes back to the same principle, which is if you don't know what something's worth, somebody can overcharge you for it. So, so unless you're working with someone who can really kind of, explain all those factors in the marketplace to you, so you really do know what something's worth that you're buying, you might want to take some time to get to, learn the market and figure out what things are worth before you, jump in and start throwing money around. That being said, it's really market dependent and it's really case by case dependent. So, most Ecuadorians are not going to try to jack up the price because they see a foreign face. That being said, some would. Excuse me. And partly also I should touch on too. Prices here are just very low. So, I was coming from New York City. It was like a shock to me how cheap everything was. So. It's if somebody charges you $1.50 versus $1, or 40 cents versus 30 cents, it's kind of comical at the beginning, and then you certainly adjust, and now the difference between 25 cents and 30 cents is kind of means something. But so there's that. But then just getting back to the real estate, foreigners are often willing to spend a little more, for example, on rentals, but they're generally also looking for some higher quality detail work and finishing work. So sometimes they're paying slightly more, but it's also slightly higher quality product. With real estate, I think again it just comes back to learning the market and learning what things are worth, so that you're playing the game as it should be played. Those specific markets where prices have gone up a bit, in general, have some people gotten ripped off, just paying too much? Certainly. But I think, again, that can happen anywhere in the world. It just comes down to kind of being shrewd in what you do. But, in general, my takeaway with the whole kind of like Gringo Prices fear thing would be, don't worry about it, have fun. You'll figure all that stuff out. It's not as widespread and prevalent as people would make it out to be, and so that's really it. Take care, guys. Have a great day.